Good morning, everyone. I'm Quinn Wisson from Vertical Measures, and I'm here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Reverse Engineer Google Hummingbird for Content Strategy, and will be presented by our very special guest, Eric Van Puskirk. He is an SEO and content marketing independent consultant and is passionate about big data analysis, and I know he knows what he's talking about, so this should be a very interesting webinar. He also now works with his local clients in his hometown of Philadelphia and is a recent alum of SEMrush, where he oversaw major accounts. Before we get started and I hand over the presentation, I have just a couple of things to note. Today's webinar will be available for viewing by tomorrow, and we will go ahead and send everyone an email with a link to both the slides and the video recording. And we'll also be happy to answer any of your questions. So if you take a peek at your webinar interface, you will see a little question applet, and you can go ahead and ask us any questions during the webinar, and I will collect them all and ask Eric at the end of his presentation. Also, if you'd prefer to do it through Twitter, you can tweet us with the hashtag VMWebinar, and we'll go ahead and get it that way. If you have any technical problems, just let me know, or you can sign off, and then sign back on, and usually that fixes everything. So we're going to just start out with a quick poll here just to get an idea of what your background is and what your focus is. So I'm going to go ahead and send this out. So if you could just answer, what's your background or focus? Is it SEO? Is it content strategy and development? Or is it some kind of other marketing? So I see some answers coming in. It looks like we got more people on the content strategy and development side, and then a mixed bag of SEO and other marketing people. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, but it looks like half of us are content people. So this should be a good session for us. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to our special guest presenter, Eric Van Puskirk.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yep. Sounds good.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Quinn. I'm excited to talk to you all. Thanks to Vertical Measures. I did a similar webinar on the SEMrush channel, I guess about a month ago, and I'm really excited for today because even since then, I've really polished up how I explain some of these techniques and the semantic web. So we're going to talk about hack the Google robot and fill your website topic gaps. There's a recent film, it's called Ex Machina, which portrayed an artificial intelligence robot with its machine learning coming from a search engine, and it was thinly disguised and implied as Google. If you haven't seen this, it's really a fantastic movie. Probably not in the theaters anymore, though. I'm sure it's out in other channels very soon. And so, you know, we're talking and speaking at or with our devices more and more. We call them devices now, but maybe we'll be calling them robots in the near future. And so, yeah, in 5 years, and I'm using air quotes here because you can't see me, the conversation will approach robust AI that's hard to imagine today. And I'm sure you all have asked yourself, does that scare you or does it excite you? And our focus today is how we can use Google's machine learning to fill these topic gaps. In a sense, just as the creators of this robot here used all of the information to inform the Ex Machina robot. So we'll learn to extract specific semantic and content relationships by reverse engineering Google search engine result pages. So all of the data that informs what we're doing here is coming from the actual result pages, and I'm going to be showing you how to do this very inexpensively, perhaps even free, using those tools. First, I want to point out a couple studies that show the importance of Google Hummingbird and of the semantic relationships, how important they are to ranking. The first slide, I find this critically important, and it's amazing to me. So Muse, to me, is one of the top 3 sort of data science companies when it comes to understanding what's going on with Google. They have an annual ranking factor study, and it came out just this past August, and their #1 finding was that Google is smarter about what pages mean through related keywords, synonyms, close variants, and entities without relying on exact keyword phrases, and that matching user intent is of the utmost importance. So think again about how people search differently when they're using devices like phones and they're talking into them. Google can't just look at those words. They have to understand the meaning because people search in very different ways, sometimes more complex, actually. So basically the Moz, excuse me, folks. Basically the Moz findings are another way of describing the effects of the Hummingbird algorithm. And you'll see these kinds of descriptions over and over anytime you're reading about what Hummingbird does that changes the way search results happen. And so Google understands the meaning of a website, not just in words that are in silos. That's the idea of silos, I think, is important here. It's understanding that things all come together. One of the other very, very top studies to look at, on an annual basis, so it's a big thing they do to look at what's going on in Google result pages, is put out by Searchmetrics. Theirs came out also in August, just as past August as the one I'm referring to here. They've been talking about the effects and importance of Hummingbird for really since it started. They've kind of been one of the leaders to talk about it. And they kind of, echoed what they've been already saying, but it's interesting, again, to see the kind of language that they use to describe this, and in some ways to compare what we saw Moz saying. So what they found, and this was this is studying just massive amounts of data, is that the top pages have more extensive coverage of the theme that they're trying to cover. Content's more holistic. Keywords and external links have declined in importance. Pages with the most relevant content are likely to rank better. It's not going to be significant as part of the content without relevant context. So the context of what you're saying has to be, relevant. Longer texts whereby the subtopics mentioned also need to be relevant. So this is a slide that Marcus, the CEO of Searchmetrics, put together in July of 2013. And before Hummingbird, 4 out of 10 of the result pages here for 2 different terms that are not exactly the same but very similar were the same. Okay, there were 4 of 10. And we see this over and over. But importantly, when I say we, if you're not looking for it, you're not trying to do these comparisons of this data science, you miss that all of this is going on. So what I mean to say is what we see is the importance of how this has changed to later in time when he did this other slide. So this is actually from a year later, and now after Hummingbird's fully in place, so this would have been September of 2014, the figure rises to 90% of the same pages are showing up. And I could go on and on about some of these big changes that Hummingbird has brought to us, but that's an easy way to see it. You also see that more pages rank for a lot of content, especially long tail, and a lot of pages don't rank at all. So the number of pages that are showing up for top searches, and also long tail searches, has gone down. It's the ones that have extensive content and the websites that are well written that appear for a lot of different search terms. Now, so a lot of people today are relying on related keyword tools to figure out, what they think is going to make a more semantically rich content for their site and for their pages. By the way, I'm just going to ask, is everybody good with the sound quality now?
It looks like it, and it sounds like, yep, everyone's saying great, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. So what the problem here is that they rely on an SEO or content strategist existing and subjective topic knowledge. They're ordered by metrics that don't really help us, like volume. They're not based on machine learning. I don't know if I'd say machine language learning, but machine learning. And they don't show a strength of relationship. For example, here's a fantastic related keyword tool in SEMrush. I'm intimately familiar with it. I know this product inside out, having worked at the company. This is a search for USA. And You know, is basketball really the 5th most important topic to USA? No, it's not. So here we've ordered it by volume. Not going to tell us anything about the importance of how they're related or the degree of relationship. As a CPC as a value metric, well, that tells you that just it's a one-to-one comparison of how valuable basketball is to, let's say, some of these other terms, but it's not helping at all. Same with competition. So onward. So the problem is that we're trying to boil the ocean when we look at these related keywords. We're getting hundreds, perhaps even thousands of ideas of things that relate to a parent topic, but we just don't know how to put them together. So here are the other tools that people use for semantic SEO, including the ones that bring us to another level. Uber Suggests, Google Keyword Planner, both have this related keyword problem. You know, they may show like the kinds of things that you find in autocomplete, but you don't know of all these similar keywords, how they all fit together as a group. I just showed you SEMrush related keywords. These three, Searchmetrics, BrightEdge, and Conductor, they're all enterprise SEO platforms, and they're pretty darn powerful. Not to mention you have a client services person working with you, but they're enterprise, and I don't think any of them are available for less than $3,000 a month. And perhaps most importantly, at their heart, they are SEO tools. They're not about content strategy and learning how to write, you know, to improve your writing based on data analysis, or they're not specialists in anything semantic related. Captora, like these others, it's actually really hard to even get a demo of these because they've got to, salespeople have to qualify you as working for an enterprise company, and quite frankly, I try to understand this better, and I just wasn't willing to lie and say, oh, I'm working for, you know, a Fortune 500. So I wasn't able to see a demo, and I wasn't able to test them out. I don't entirely know what they do, but my understanding is that they are they have one of the most sophisticated sort of semantic engines. They do a lot of other things, but and their, my understanding, is roughly $20,000 per quarter. So again, you know, this is not child's play in terms of cost. So the two things I'm going to talk about using, one is a technique that I developed using co-occurrences and using data from tools like SEMrush. You don't have to use SEMrush. We'll look at that. And to a lesser extent, I'm also going to review Market Muse. And so Market Muse is a tool that at its heart is a machine learning system that analyzes authority content on the web and finds content gaps on your website by looking at your website. Okay, co-occurrence. Some of you have heard this term because it basically is what is used with a lot of multiple variable comparisons. You don't need to understand anything about statistics really to understand the techniques that I'm using here. Just to know that it's a many-to-many comparison that's giving us this really useful information. So now the key is that with this many comparison, we get degrees of relatedness or association to a parent topic. And you know, as far as the phrase, the words that I'm using, I generally say something like keyword phrases or keyword to imply that, you know, I'm talking about that in the context of SEO. Topic or entity are very much often used in the context of the semantic relationship. So when I use those, I'm trying to sort of steer you into thinking of it in one way or the other. If I just say phrase, maybe I'm trying to be neutral and not saying, hey, think of this via SEO or via semantic. So the most important feature that we need to have in these tools is they've got to be a rank tracking tool that updates a huge number of the most popular keyword phrases to find the other ranking pages from the same URL or the same, let's see, the other ranking keywords from the same page or URL. Now, of course, these tools that do that, that's usually something that people don't look at very much. The more advanced SEOs, they like to look at that a lot. What else is ranking from pages of my competitors? So it's just one of many capabilities of that kind of tool. And then I've shared a Google template spreadsheet, it's right here, and perhaps Quinn, if you can throw that into the chat window. I guess I would ask folks not to look at it now, but you're going to find this useful as I go through these steps as a way to make sure that you understand how to do this. So if we look at, now we're going to start looking at these techniques. So obviously we do a search, and let's say Xbox is our parent topic. We're going to look at, let's say, a big gaming website, not a massive, but a big one, and we want to do topic app analysis on their use of the word Xbox. So here's the top 4 results you're seeing in SEMrush, and that includes the domain, but most importantly, and what we're going to use is the page. Of course, Xbox.com ranks number 1, and from multiple instances of the other related phrases, from that page, we find more examples of semantic relevance. The other ranking phrases are relevant, otherwise Google wouldn't send traffic to the page. And so what we'll find is the highest number of occurrences is the same as the number of pages you examine. So I'm going to show you doing this manually with 10 of the top authoritative pages. That means, since we're looking for co-occurrences from one page to the next, the highest score, so-called score, would be 10, because it can only appear one time, that page for that term. And then, you know, this part of pulling the data from 10 in one of these tools is pretty time intensive. So, you know, you may even consider hiring someone from Fiverr, or it's pretty intensive, but it doesn't require a lot of skills once you show someone. I'll also show you all at the end. You can contact me for 2 weeks free use of my tools that let you pull this information in bulk using the SEMrush API. Okay. So here's the first page that we would download. And so using SEMrush as an example, here's the page. And yeah, I think you guys will probably have to go back and look at some of this, or you're not going to remember unless you take notes. But we typed the page in because we got that. Probably would be best to get it from searching for that keywords results right in a tool itself. And then here are the other phrases that are appearing. And so, you know, remember, there's 200 ranking signals that Google's using to determine that these are also very relevant results on that page. And we've seen that the results Google returns are highly, highly accurate. I had someone ask me last night, actually, really fantastic question. I've always been concerned about, well, how is this system not going to be, what kinds of things are going to create noise here? And so he said to me, well, but wait a minute, you're looking at the text on all these pages and comparing them, but some pages rank for all kinds of stuff, but they've only got 2 lines of text on them. Well, what's interesting there is that we are not just looking at the text on this one page. In fact, Google is pulling in sometimes keywords that don't even appear there, including, of course, things like phrase matches. And yes, this gets a little bit confusing to say this, but I'm trying to show you that this is so relevant when you just remember that everything they're returning as a result, if you believe they're accurate, makes this process work. So you could have a page with just 2 sentences, and it may have 500 phrases that appear as a result. And that's because Google knows that even though they're 2 sentences, perhaps 1 click away, you're going to find all the other useful information. And then, you know, another way of looking at this is, as far as the process we're using, let's actually look at another screenshot tool. So this is doing the exact same thing, but from SpyFu. And these are the other words that appear on one of these big authority pages that I found in the top 10. So what if we saw here the Wizard of Oz? And you would say, oh my God, what the heck? That's not related to this. And this is, again, where you may think you're an expert on a subject, or your editors or your writers may think they are, or if they're not, certainly, maybe there's a new game that just came out for the Xbox, and somehow you missed the news, but it's kind of a big deal. If it only shows on this one page, it's not significant. Either that game was just really small-time information, or maybe extreme text somehow had some other big signals on here that that page had relevance to the movie and nothing about the game. So if it doesn't appear a number of times, the beauty of doing this multiple comparison is that it just drops, and it's not going to be in our list of words that we can look at. Oh, wow, I'm running behind time. Quinn, do we have maybe an extra 10 minutes to go before the questions, or no?
Yeah, let's try to get as much as we can in.
Okay.
Go for it.
So here's a sample of all the words that appeared 3 times. So look at that spreadsheet that I put up on Google Drive if you want to understand how you are formatting all of this. But these appeared 3 times. That's actually a decent amount of significance there out of just 10 pages. And what we typically find is that out of 10 pages, something like 6 or 7 of 10 pages up to, or all something that appears 10 times, it's going to be misspelled or synonym, like expos. This, by the way, this is really fascinating stuff you can do with PPC, because you see the degree of confidence Google has that they're going to redirect this to an Xbox page. But the more times they redirect to Xbox versus not, it shows their confidence in that misspelling. These are the gold nuggets, the 3 to 5 occurrences. And again, we know the degree of relatedness because it's a 3 versus a 5 versus a 6. And then in this example, I'm going to show you, moving on now, I actually did this with 25 URLs. You do more, you compare more, and of course you're going to get more accurate and granular data. And then 3s are still really useful, and you can get all the way up to like the difference between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. So the parent terms in this case were Xbox and Xbox News, because I wanted to do the gaps for a news site about gaming that also wrote about Xbox, as I mentioned earlier. This is one of the ways we can do the analysis of the gaps. We can compare gaps by taking a large group of keyword phrases that drive the most traffic to your site. So this is a profile of your website's content. You could download a spreadsheet from Webmaster Tools or from SEMrush or SpyFu of your hundreds of most important phrases, including long tail, that appear in the SERP for your website. Now, if you're a site that you're doing a topic research and it's really not the topic of your whole site, like in this case, they're gaming, they're not Xbox, then you're going to need to, it becomes more challenging, because what I did in this case was I actually filtered to all the words that they rank for, even long tail, up to 300 that had the word Xbox. And again, it still works with a lot of long tail because you're getting signals from Google. And so this is a topic cloud, also known as a tag cloud. It represents not only the words that make up a topic, but the ratio of those words. And you can decide how many you want to examine. I believe I did 75 for each of these. It didn't come out as 75 here, I guess, because some of them were just appearing so much it doesn't show all. Part of what works well here is that it strips out the crazy most important words such as the, be, to, or of. And so what we want to do is look for the topics in our lists that have these gap words. And so here are the results from our analysis, which I find it really interesting, and I see this often, that there's a lot more agreement between these authority sites than there is between another website, because, hey, these guys didn't really do any kind of like analysis to really cover everything. But the Google Hummingbird filter is trying to really find the key topic, phrases here, and it's more honed in. And so what I find is that I don't see enough appearance on the website I'm trying to fill the gaps on for these words here. And I see how well this works in that these very important words, sale, price, they're covered. They're showing up as, they're bolded, they're a darker blue. That's how this particular topic cloud works. And also I have numbers next to each one as to how much they appear. So we don't have the final sort of handoff unless you are the writer and want to interpret from this. I'm going to look at that in a second in terms of how to go from here. I want to diverge for a second, and I promised to show you something about Market Muse. So I'm an agency partner with them, which means I can execute data-driven content strategy with their software. I could have done this. I could have tried to be a partner with some of the other enterprise softwares I showed, but this is my specialty. So that's why I'm showing this, is because they're the ones that are really at their center all about the semantic analysis. They have their own algorithm for finding topic relationships. Their co-founder is a really top leading expert in semantic machine learning. I can't tell you exactly how they hack the Google robot, but they do pull in authoritative pages to look for co-occurrences. So maybe they get some of this from search results. It's proprietary, and I don't even know the answer to that. So one would expect to find each of the main topics of a website a certain number of times based on the sheer volume of content. And Market Muse determines this based on how much content is on the whole website. And it actually, so it's crawling your entire website in addition to looking out on the web. In this case, this is a huge site, blinds.com. And, look at how many times some of these words occur. Vertical blinds, I mean, that's a crazy number. So you can see that the threshold is going to be quite high for everything related to what we search for as a focus keyword, window blinds. But, this is kind of shocking. Venetian blinds, you would think that's pretty important for this site if it has so much content and this is our focus word. Well, I mean, that's just really low, and the relevance is 3 stars. Probably it's, if they had a bigger scale, it would be more than 3. So that's obviously a topic gap that needs to be filled. And what Market Muse lets you do is it shows you the pages where you could fill that gap, because they're pages that are about window blinds and they're missing, Venetian blinds, meaning you can go in here and write additional content, create an H2 with additional content, for example. Okay, so I quickly want to show you how keyword research fits into all of this. And this is the part which I'll have to go very quickly through. The most current ways of doing this is we look at organic competitors by looking at things, well, basically by looking at their metrics compared to ours, and then we look at keyword metrics. To look at competitors, we look, for example, how similar, and this is critical, they are to our site. Again, probably using a tool that shows topic overlap, not topic, I take that back, keyword overlap, either like SEO Marshbafu, any of these tools that are looking at tons of keywords, and we find one very related, and we want to find a couple sites that are like carbon copies of ours with their metrics. We look at then their domain authority, their page authority, equity links, and we can say, okay, let's say these 3 really match my website. What they rank for, I can rank for. And then we look at another site, perhaps, and we say, whoa, wait a minute, this site, we can't rank what they rank for. And then that kind of information can be pulled in and used with our topic analysis, because now you've got, I'm not showing that on this page, but now you've got this traditional, keyword metric information that comes in from our technique that we used. And you've also got the topic metrics, and in another way, you can be looking at what keywords your competitors are ranking on. This is the next to last slide. So this, for me, is the final step here, which is that I create for my clients usually something like a 30-page, what I call a content strategy blueprint. And if I'm going to do the writing, I don't have to maybe do this in as much detail, but this is a way for me to give really explicit instructions that don't put the writer or the content creator in a straitjacket, but give them a lot of ways to go. So, for example, this page is number 10 for Xbox controller on this website. And I'm saying, well, we needed to add, and I don't actually know if this was true from our results, but let's just, as a scenario, we needed to try and do more about gaming and free. So this was a word that, based on traditional keyword research and the topic keyword research, I said, try and rank for this. Perhaps do it as an H2 and then add 2 paragraphs or something like that. I gave the writer another choice that I think is second most important there to add content. And I even gave a bunch of other words if they want to really add a lot of content. Some of these can even be thrown in. I mean, yes, that looks like keyword stuffing, but it wouldn't hurt to have a sentence about some of these long tails here. My last slide, finito, we're finished. So reach out to me by email or the contact form. I would love to take some questions now. And yeah, reach out to me also on my website if you like, or on Twitter. I think you saw my Twitter address. Also, if you want to have a 2-week trial that uses the SEMrush API to pull some of this data, you do have to have an SEMrush account, but you can get a trial account if you wanted to with them. And so our topic analysis lets us know where the Google robot finds agreement from the most important pages on the web about a topic. And, you know, good content should be thorough, helping both your grandmother and a 20-year-old living next door equally. If your website is, for example, everything about hamster racing, and indeed these individuals fall into the cohort groups, you know, visit your website, you know, for hamster racing, extensive topic coverage is going to help them both. And Hummingbird, you know, it works well for Google to judge your web pages, and you should let it work for you by backwards engineering what the robot learned. So yeah, let's go ahead and take some questions, Quinn.
Yeah, so we've got a question from Caro. So they ask, so are you saying that the overall use of a keyword and variations of it across your entire site is now more important than on a specific page about that topic?
I would say, okay, yeah, there's a lot of ways to answer that, but the basic answer is yes. Google is I mean, so keywords are they're just variables. You really have to think of them as variables. They're looked at together in a big picture, in an amalgamation. And it's not just the keyword, of course, but it's things that are semantically related. So, you know, that Venetian blinds example, I mean, yeah, you need to use that across your site. But if there's another way of saying that same phrase, and I'm not sure there is in that case, then that's just as good. So if you need to be an expert and you need to focus on something. You might have what I call topic creep if you're not using these phrases over and over. But more importantly, if you're not talking about something within a certain area of expertise. If you start talking about the Red Sox and the World Series and your site is about SEO, that's not a good idea. And in fact, that's the kind of the issue that I have with how Google does this that I don't like, is because it doesn't let websites be like Renaissance people or people be Renaissance people. You are not going to rank well if you don't focus on a very specific area. And you know, the more authority your site has with links and age and all those signals, the more you can kind of get away with broadening out from within there. I guess I diverged a little from the question, but I hope it answered it.
Yeah. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to send those along. So I've got another one. If you could choose one software to purchase to help identify keyword gaps and evaluate and track keyword movement, which would it be, or would you use a combination like how you recommended today?
Well, so my method is to do this very manually. I've been doing this for 10 months now. I developed this whole technique, which is basically what I just showed you, other than that I built some tools to speed it up, based all on using the data in SEMrush. So, you know, it really comes down to, do you have existing experience with some of these things? And it really, by the way, straddles between content strategy, meaning sort of editor type people, and people that are really experienced with creating, and SEO, because it's right between the two. This is not more of an SEO thing than something else. So I like this more manual process. You know, if you have a budget for enterprise tools, you can do that, but you're really, of course, paying for so much else that they're about, which is SEO. You know, so you can hire someone to do techniques like this, and then, you know, you can, if you want to contact me about Market Muse, I mean, it does automate more of this, and there are degrees to which you can make it a more manual process or not.
And then can you mention any of the results you've seen from doing this type of semantic work? I mean, maybe with clients, you don't have to call them out, but, you know, has this worked really well for you, and have you seen results come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So So what I see more than anything else is I do a fair amount of data science, and I certainly follow what others are doing. And God, in some ways, I would like to just do that because I just find it fascinating. It's so some of this is so transparent when you do data analysis to see how this is working. So, for example, I wrote a piece showing how people will say to you, wow, this is a site that's like perfect because they've got so much engagement going on. They've got all these great signals to Google, and they write really well. You can tell they're not just trying to like, hey, let's create something about how to boil eggs. They really researched this. And there are ways to look and see, are they ranking better? And also, is each individual page ranking better? And I've written and I've showed that kind of site versus something that's been around like eHow, for example, that is still just sort of like, I mean, you can almost tell they're like outsourcing these articles. You know, they're like getting someone offshore to write them. So if you can think of ways of measuring success, oh my God, you can completely see by doing some data science, or I mean, maybe that's a big word, but even if you figure out how to look in like SEMrush or SpyFu or you know, one of those enterprise SEO tools, you can completely see what's going on with that.
And then I know you mentioned as one of the tools the Google Keyword Planner. Do you ever use that at all, or do you not find it helpful for this type of thing?
I find it, and all the SEOs that are on this conversation, I'm sure would say the same thing. It's absolutely critical for getting search volume because, you know, without giving away the secrets of my former employer, which I can't, it's really hard to get keyword volume. But in the end, it's pretty much all sort of an iteration of what Google tells us, and the only place they give us that originally is there. And that search volume is critical because even if you're trying to understand how you write about topics, it's really useful to know, well, but how popular is that topic based on how many times it's searched. But other than that, yeah, I do use it. I do use it, but it's not that much more helpful than some of the related keyword tools out there.
This is a question kind of about a specific company, but I think the sentiment behind it will apply to a lot of people on the call. We've got a question that says, I work for a plumbing, sewer, and HVAC company. It is hard to fit so much information on all the little things for each department on our website. We use blogging to expand on those topics in more detail. Would this work for the robot crawlers?
So am I understanding that correctly in that will the blogging that's being written help to sort of flesh out the full coverage of the theme of the website? Is that the idea?
I believe so. If you want to respond here who asked it, let us know. But that sounds like what he's asking here. So could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely 110%. That is, I mean, obviously that's going to be one of the easiest ways to really be sure you're covering something. But, you know, think about if it is, that's a good example of something like plumbing. I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to fully cover that subject matter, but you do want to hit on, you know, think about what the user expects to find. You want to be able to answer, you want to be able to say anyone coming here can find an answer to, you know, plumbing questions, but they're not going to expect you to have like, you know, 100,000 pages about it. And then with local sites, what's so interesting, of course, is how can you talk about your local area without it being just doing it for the search engines. And that's a real challenge because the more you can talk about if you're really locally based without it being like, huh, like why are you giving statistics about the city of Boston, as opposed to like, well, here's a blog post about some really crazy experience or some crazy thing in the history of pipes and sewage in the city of Boston. That's a great way to flesh out that, oh, and by the way, our theme of this website is not just plumbing. Our theme is plumbing in the location Boston.
Awesome. Yeah, I know local SEO is something we've been talking a lot about here. It presents its unique challenges, so I'm sure that's the same here. I think that's all the time we've got today, but if anyone has other questions, feel free to send them to us. And we will also, I had a couple questions about the recording. We did record this, so we'll send out the recording as well as the slides tomorrow after it's all processed. And then I guess that's it. But I want to thank you so much, Eric, for being here, and we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge on this subject.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Quinn, and thanks to all of you that stuck in there. And again, I just would remind everyone, check out that spreadsheet if you want to sort of a recap of this, or even with the video, because I know that I covered a lot of sort of stuff that would take a lot of detailed work, but that would probably help you figure out some of those steps.
Yeah,
but thanks
and
very
I will
much.
I'll paste it again in here, and then we'll also include it on our follow-up email, so you guys can get it there.
Super.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Well, thanks, Eric. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.